So, of course, I want to just jump straight into it, being in lockdown now. Going into week 6 is no other than, of course, our Minister for Agriculture, Damien O'Connor. You can't have spent the whole time inside, though, I imagine, Damien.
No, most of the day that I do try and get out as quickly as I can. And so the best project is about 300 posts. We were growing boysenberries and we were pulling them out. So it's about an acre and a half that we pulled the posts out, worked the paddock over, got it sown down. We just had enough rain and it struck in about 3 days ago. So I'm watching grass grow. So it's actually really great.
Oh, I think there'll be a lot of people around the country that will be extremely jealous of that comment right now, Damien.
We did. We got 25 mils last night, which is a huge boost for. This is on the top part of the electorate around Nelson, Melbourne. So it's been very dry here, and it's certainly you've seen the grass move. A little bit of rain a couple of days ago, and certainly it's boosted the growth.
Fantastic. Now, as we've been saying throughout the show, the main sector of our economy that has been allowed to continue to operate under level 4 of our lockdown was, of course, the food production sector of farming and the immediate essential services that supported them. There is never 100% year in farming where everything lines up. And of course, once in a generation, there's a year like 2020 where all the seams decide to fall apart across the whole garment. 6 weeks and the pressures are starting to really bite, and the economic recession and unemployment predictions are looking like a horror movie. No amount of reruns of The Simpsons will get out of your head before bed. We have a few topics, so we're going to get through tonight to close the show with Minister of Agriculture Damien O'Connor, who is, of course, joining us now. Damien, let's start with these frightening unemployment numbers and the dream that, of course, all of them are going to transition over to the gaping hole in the primary sector. Is that really possible? Because, I mean, we've been talking about this gaping hole now for many years.
Look, in the short time we've seen, people have gone from forestry into horticulture. Quite a few Kiwis have lined up to help with the kiwi fruit harvest. And indeed, the apple harvest has been completed virtually. With no major shortages of labour, and many of those positions have been filled by Kiwis. There still are quite a few migrant workers across the country, but they will probably leave, and we're not going to see them back into the country for quite some time. So there's a real need to get people into the primary sectors, horticulture, viticulture, dairy, even across the wider farming sector. And it's up to us to provide the right incentives, the right story about all the opportunities and actually the great life you can have outdoors if you come into a farming or horticulture or viticulture job. So we do have a bit of a sales job ahead of us, and then we've got to do some training. And one of the things I've asked for is both Telford and Tauratahi were run down. Very sad, institutions battered around a bit. We've got them up and running again, only just. And so we've got to boost the capability at both Tauratahi and Telford over the next few months, and we're working on that, to provide short-term training that may enable people who may never go onto a farm to think about going into one of these jobs.
Do you think the business model around our training institutions needs to be readdressed to be sustainable?
It does, and that's why Chris Hipkins, as Minister of Education, had a massive review of vocational education, and all the polytechs, all the ITOs, and all the training establishments like Telford and Tauratahi have come under review. We know it's been broken. We're working on and getting up in place a better model. In fact, the primary sector has got a strategy around training, the first one alongside construction, so we're in a really good space to actually work between the industries, between the new structure in vocational education and training, and make sure we get the people we need.
Okay, so in terms of course, what is scarily being reported as nearly the worst drought in New Zealand's history, there has been a bit of criticism, but an opportunity to potentially relook at how we direct support, and by no means is this under any word subsidy for drought support into the right places. Damien, you funded directly into the Rural Support Trust and said, here's some money, go for your life. And then you've had money going to farm advisors, here you go for your life in regards to supporting this. Farmers just tangibly need the logistical pipeline open up to get the silos of grain sitting in Canterbury to where they're needed, but it's just costing far too much. What do you think that we can do to actually put that support directly where it's needed?
I mean, early decision making on farms is crucial, and I have to say, in discussing with officials, Rural Support Trust and others, there's still too many farmers who have hung on. They've wanted to get more weight on their stock, hope for a bit of rain, and it hasn't come, particularly in places like, Southern Hawke's Bay, and we've had some of the Tararuas further south of that. There've been some rain, so some animals have shifted around, and that will be assisted by the sale yards opening up. But also people can trade online. There's a new world that we're all living in, and farmers have to get used to trading and trusting online trading, and that'll be a new opportunity. In the meantime, they do need feed for the stock that are stuck there. Look, the meat companies and the freezing works are almost back up to full capacity, and those that aren't yet will be, within the next week or two. So that's good news. It will relieve some of the pressure. But the grain, and I've just asked today MPI to get an idea of the quantum of grain that is available to make sure we can get it into the right place. We've put up online and through Rural Support Trusts, working with the stock and station agencies, federated farmers, to make sure that where there is feed, farmers know about it and can buy it. So we've been doing all the coordination we can. But in the end, it will be probably more expensive to shift some of that feed at the moment. The banks have to sit down with the farmers. I think in this COVID situation, every part of our economy has to be considerate. We're trying to encourage the banks to be considerate. The word is that they have eased off at a time they were putting real pressure on farmers. So we have to make use of all those opportunities to get through this period, and hopefully the rain will come while it's still warm enough to get a little bit of growth in some of these areas.
Talking about logistics, I mean, I remember back to the 2013 drought, and it was in a different place than it is now. It wasn't it's up to this person or up to this person. It was a real collaborative approach to be able to coordinate the logistics of containers and trucking, and the industry really came together, but where they needed the ministry was to basically pull those things together and do it through someone like Farmlands to underwrite that credit facility to ensure that the grain harvest people got paid, of course, because no one here is asking for money. They just want some form of logistics, and not, of course, a department that says you should have planned earlier, because we could have said the same to our liquor stores and our Chinese takeaways. No one saw COVID-19 coming and the backlog that was going to come. There's people with 30 to 50% of lamb still on the ground 1st of May that shouldn't be there. And that is not directly about fee budgeting in February, Minister.
And no, look, I appreciate, some people have got caught out. We have been helping all the way through. We haven't laid it on to other people. We've been doing the coordination. We don't have a pot of money to hand out to farmers who need feed. And that's always been the situation for a long time. But really happy to help with logistics, working with feed farmers, with other people, to make sure that we put the right feed in the right place to the farmers who need it. And if we truck feed around to the wrong place, not very helpful either. The fact that it's been dry across, most of New Zealand has made it harder this time. There's not feed readily available in other regions we can truck. And I think that's been at the core of the difference with this drought through New Zealand.
I am of support of online livestock trading, was involved in it 5 years ago, Minister. However, I am in full support of reopening of sale yards, because forcing people to adapt to an online technology rapidly when there's an animal welfare and farmer welfare issue is a lot to ask. And we've had Frankton sale yards demonstrating what under strict protocol can look like by agents. But are you working closely with the upper management of these companies to ensure that we don't have skinny animals in mud this winter, which we do not need on social media?
Well, the companies decide themselves whether they want to open up their sale yards. There are protocols. The whole country has been focusing on health protocols that prevent the spread of COVID, and we've got on top of it. And with if we stick to what we've been doing for another couple of weeks, hopefully we'll be in a position where we have a whole lot more movement around the country, businesses back up and running, and actually have a very good international reputation for what we can do. So we're working with all the people across all the sectors, and in primary sectors, those people who own the sale yards, stock and station agents, those who have got online trading. We just have to encourage people to, take the necessary steps in what is, a time we would never have ever imagined. So this is tough and challenging times, and we have been lucky that we've been able to carry on and for the most part, do normal operations, do normal activities in the primary sectors when the rest of the economy's actually had to shut down in many places.
To close, sir, I am going to ask you the poll question tonight. Do you believe that the government is providing the right financial and regulatory support to the sector that will pull us through the economy recession?
Look, I'm not quite sure what you wanted. I was farming in the 80s when the subsidies were taken off. I haven't met many farmers that want to go back to that situation. We certainly step in and help. There's a huge amount of money going to research and development, into coordination, into biosecurity. We've done a lot to ensure that the primary sector can move on and continue to operate and prosper. What we don't want, and farmers don't want us to do, is to step in and tell farmers what to do. And ultimately, those business decisions are made on farm, and we'll be there with the infrastructure, a huge amount of money going from government, from taxpayers into infrastructure, rural and urban, to make sure that our country can, move beyond COVID, utilise the ongoing opportunity from the primary sectors and create more export wealth, and we'll all be better off. And it's great that we have been able to continue. We've got to get more value for everything we do, open up those markets and ensure that we reward everyone for their efforts across agriculture and horticulture.
And no one is asking for subsidies, Minister, at all. I think that the combination of events is extremely severe in regards to farming across the 80s. The only difference to me is that, from my mind, and of course I was a young nipper then, is extremely high interest rates. But the amount of a pandemic as well as a recession and, of course, the most extreme drought is, of course, something to be concerned. That's not going to, of course, be financially supported by this government, but at the same time, I don't really like the rhetoric of it's the fittest person, the person that can come through this will be the winner in terms of survival of the fittest is what I'm trying to say. We can't afford our farming community, who have been under extreme stress for not only this year but several years now, to collapse under that stress just because you should have been able to plan for this.
Well, look, actually prices have been pretty good for the last few years. Export earnings are actually at record, and we even through the early COVID period, we've only seen a slight drop in export earnings. So we've been doing a really good job. Costs have gone up on farm in some areas, but there's a lot of farmers who've been doing really well. They've been paying down debt and are well positioned. But the drought is something that no one, of course, can predict, and no one can actually manage in terms of we need the rainfall, and if we can share feed around and trade it, then that helps a whole lot of farmers in different places. It has come from the top of New Zealand to the bottom. It's a tough period for drought, and of course in Southland we saw the floods. So not easy, but actually commodity prices have held up reasonably well, and many people are saying that we just got to get on and turn that into a better future, and that's indeed what we're doing.
I've had a question come in here. There's the concept around flight to trust. How well positioned are we?
Flight to trust? I can't quite work that one.
My apologies. I'll have to clarify that. But there's been a whole campaign around it today. But I will move on to another question. But I think no, obviously hasn't popped up there.
All right.
But no, thank you so much for taking the time. Of course, it is a stressful time. What would be your key messages, Minister, that is obviously going to come out in the next couple of weeks or so about supporting the rural economy so that they feel that this government is right behind them to achieve that?
Look, I think we always have said that, and we're at the core of our economy. We have been for 150 years. We will be into the future. The fact that we, deemed essential services across all the primary industries, bar forestry, meant that we recognise the importance, and it's enabled us to go through the seasonal challenges that we have, to carry on into the spring and hopefully be in a far better position, to help the rest of the country through COVID, provide some jobs, provide some new career opportunities for New Zealanders, and all be better off for it.
And we'll have to look forward to, of course, that budget that's going to be announced shortly too, to see what numbers we can put around your promises, Minister.
Yes, as I say, I don't think that people want subsidies out there. They want good, wise infrastructural spend. They want research and development in the right areas. They want to make sure that we've got, good water quality. We've got access to water storage and things like this. And these are the projects that we're working on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And of course, we will be able to catch up with you in due course and, of course, keep a bit of an update on that lifestyle block and how it's all progressing. That is Damien O'Connor, Minister of Agriculture.
This is Sarah's Country.